For years, Western analysts wrote off this Russian aircraft as a dead program that would never actually fly. Then sanctions hit, and suddenly the same aircraft became one of Russia's top military priorities almost overnight. It's called the Il-276, and it's designed to replace two aircraft Russia can no longer keep flying the old way. This isn't about a flashy fighter jet. It's about the unglamorous plane that decides whether an army can actually move. And the story of why Russia suddenly needs it reveals a supply chain crisis most people never hear about. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what the Il-276 is, why it exists now, and why it isn't really a Boeing rival at all. Russia's military airlift for decades rested on two aircraft, the Antonov An-12, in service since 1958, and the Ilyushin Il-76, flying since 1974. A smaller aircraft, the An-26, joined in 1965, built for short, rough airstrips in mountains and tactical zones. By 2020, the core of that fleet, the Il-76, was already under serious pressure. Sanctions after the 2014 annexation of Crimea, then expanded sharply after February 2022, cut Russia off from Western aerospace components and avionics. The Il-76 fleet depends heavily on the Russian-built PS-90 engine, but much of its avionics and subsystems were originally Western. Meanwhile, the An-26 fleet was aging fast, with many Soviet-built aircraft already past 50 years of service. Here's the detail most coverage skips completely. Russia's obvious replacement partner had just disappeared. The Antonov Design Bureau, based in Ukraine, built the An-12 and An-26 in the first place, and that access vanished after 2014, then collapsed entirely after 2022. Ukraine's own replacement project, the An-178, was meant to be partly built in Russia, but those arrangements broke down completely. So Russia needed a domestic medium transport aircraft, something heavy enough for armored vehicles, but light enough to land on unprepared strips. That's exactly the gap the Il-276 was designed to fill. It's a twin-engine turboprop transport built by the Ilyushin Design Bureau, with manufacturing planned at the Aviation factory in Ulyanovsk, the same plant building the Il-76 MD-90A. Published figures put its payload around 20 tons, with a maximum takeoff weight near 70 tons. Its cargo hold is sized to carry a BTR-80-class armored vehicle or components of a BM-21 Grad rocket system, roughly 4 meters wide, 4 meters high, and 19 meters long. Its range with maximum payload is cited at approximately 5,000 kilometers, with the ability to operate from rough strips similar to the older An-12. And the engine choice tells you exactly what kind of missions this plane is built for. Planners are looking at Russian-built turboprops, either the Klimov VK2500 family or a more powerful VK3000V derivative under discussion. Turboprops burn less fuel at lower altitudes and handle short, rough runways far better than turbofans, which matters enormously for tactical airlift. Now here's where the program's history gets interesting, because it almost didn't survive. The Il-276 first surfaced publicly in 2015 as part of Rostec and UAC's transport aircraft plans, with development contracts signed in stages between 2016 and 2019. Early work was actually done in partnership with Antonov, before the 2014 sanctions and the post-2022 collapse of Russian-Ukrainian industrial ties complicated everything. By 2020, reporting suggested development had slowed significantly, and by 2021, the technical specifications were being reworked to remove Western-dependent components. At that point, the program was treated as a low priority compared to the Il-76 MD-90A and Russia's combat aircraft programs. Then everything changed after February 2022. The United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and Japan layered on aerospace-specific sanctions designed to choke off Russia's ability to maintain and modernize its transport fleet. The Il-76 became harder to keep flying. The An-12 and An-26 fleets couldn't be sustained on indigenous parts alone, and Antonov's remaining aircraft became nearly impossible to rely on long-term. For Russian military planners, the arithmetic flipped completely. A domestic medium transport stopped being a budget line item and became a strategic necessity. By 2023, Russian Defense Ministry reporting placed the Il-276 on non-negotiable priority status, with dedicated state funding. Officials at the Ministry of Defense and Rostec confirmed the aircraft would be built. targeting first flight around 2026 to 2028, and serial production between 2028 and 2030. Aviastar SB in Ulyanovsk is set to build the airframe, with engines coming from Voronezh Aircraft Production Association, or PERM engine plant. But before you assume this timeline is locked in, look at Russia's actual track record with programs like this. The Su-57 fighter, the Il-112 light transport, and the Il-214 joint transport with India were all announced, relaunched, scaled back, and relaunched again over the 2010s. Before 2022, Western defense analysts grouped the Il-276 into that exact same, perpetually delayed category. What changed their assessment wasn't confidence in Russian industry. It was the recognition that Russia now has no alternative left. And here's a comparison you'll see a lot online that actually needs correcting. Some framing pits the Il-276 directly against Boeing's C-17 Globemaster. But that comparison doesn't really hold up. The C-17's payload and global reach range sit well above the Il-276's class entirely. They're not competing in the same category. Boeing, in fact, isn't even really in the medium transport class anymore, having exited that space through its now limited role in the C-27J Spartan partnership. The closest real Western comparison is actually the C-130 Hercules, an older, smaller aircraft that open-source estimates suggest sits close to the Il-276 in expected unit cost. So this isn't really a Boeing didn't expect it story. It's a story about Russia filling a gap that no current Western manufacturer is even trying to fill. Still, there are real open questions hanging over this entire program. Indigenous engine development has historically been Russia's biggest bottleneck, with the PS-90, the Klimov TV-7117, and the SA M146 engine all suffering long, troubled development cycles in the past. Whether the Il-276 can actually be certified for outsize cargo and perform reliably in wartime conditions hasn't been demonstrated in test flights yet, and Russian officials have a documented pattern of mixing finalized projects with intentions and pure rhetoric during sanctions-era announcements. What is confirmed is that Aviastar's facilities have been visually observed preparing tooling related to the program. So this is more than just talk. But the path from that tooling to actual serial production by 2030 remains genuinely uncertain. Russia's geography is really what makes this program matter at all: vast distances, limited paved infrastructure, and a doctrine built on fast reinforcement from inland bases to the front. No Western airlifter class is built specifically for that exact operational gap, which is precisely why Russia is building this one from scratch. So the real headline here isn't that Boeing got caught off guard. It's that sanctions accidentally forced Russia to finally finish a program it had delayed for nearly a decade. And there's one part of this story we haven't touched yet. What happens to Russia's airlift capacity in the years before this aircraft is actually ready? That gap period is arguably more important than the aircraft itself, and almost nobody is covering it. I'm breaking that exact gap down in the next video, with the numbers most channels never mention. Go watch it next, because it explains what Russia's military logistics actually look like right now, not in 2030. That's the part of this story that's happening today, not years from now.